So, welcome everybody to today's Transformational Coaching Experience. As I was just saying earlier, so if you just jumped on, if you're able to come on camera, I would love to see you. It's so much nicer to facilitate when I can actually see people and interact as opposed to just kind of talking out there to whatever, blank screens, names. So thank you for that. And as I was saying just a little bit, hi Glinda, and I was saying just a little bit earlier too, if you have the capacity to be on a device where you can use your chat function, like if you have a laptop or iPad with a keyboard, uh, please join on that as opposed to a phone so that you can contribute in the chat because this is going to be an experiential experience today and you're going to be invited to contribute in that way, and we'll do a little bit of sharing towards the end as well. But if you're able to do that as opposed to be on a phone, that would be awesome so that you can get the most out of the experience. All right, so I'm gonna aim for maybe 45 minutes of the experience, then we'll do some sharing. I will share with you upcoming group coaching opportunities if this work is of interest to you and you want to take it further. And of course, I'll leave some time at the end for Q&A if anybody has any questions or comments. By all means, those will be welcome as well. And so, again, I just encourage you to give it your 100% today, be all in, because with transformational coaching, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And so, if you are multitasking or doing other things, I just invite you to set that aside and just really be present. See if you can give yourself the gift of being here fully for the next little while. And wherever you are in the skill range of the things that we're doing today, just know that that's okay. So, what that means is if this is your first time doing some of these things and this is kind of new and it's a bit of a stretch, that is absolutely fine. You just start with where you're at and we're going to stretch a little. We're going to push our growth edge a little bit. And others of you, you might have done these things a number of times, right? And even if you're at that place, just know that there's always more to glean, that these are skills that we're going to be working on developing, and that with every skill, we can always go deeper. We can always gain more depth, more insight, more understanding, more nuance that comes with repeated practices when we really show up. So, again, regardless of where you are, that's absolutely beautiful. And everything that we're going to be doing today is skill based, which means that, if you're not good at it, that's okay, right? That's just your starting place. And the more you work with it, the easier it will become, right? And so that's the beauty of transformational work is that this isn't a situation where you're either not good enough or yes, you can do this or no, you can't really do this. It's one of these things where we really step into that growth mindset of possibility and potential and recognize that everything that we're going to work on today are things that literally from that place of a growth mindset, you can develop and refine through practice. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody's all in? Yay. All right. Beautiful. Okay, so let me see if there was anything else I wanted to say. Nope, that looks good. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into accessing our most powerful, our most capable version of ourselves. And so in a moment, I'm going to ask you to go back to a time and maybe jot down a few notes around that time. But before we jump into that, I just want to give a few examples. So when we're talking about most powerful or most capable, I'm really looking for experiences where you maybe overcame an adversity, you learned a new skill, you trained for something and achieved something. Maybe you overcame burnout, maybe you decided as a parent you wanted to do better than your parents. And so you immersed yourself in learning about parenting and did your own work so that you showed up in a better way. That could be another example. Learning to drive, obviously, a lot of us here would have learned that, right? So initially that might not have been easy, but nowadays it probably is. So those are the kind of experiences that we're looking for. So if you take a moment to think about, allowing your mind to kind of float back to what was a time or a place that you felt really powerful, you felt capable or competent. And again, we don't need a lot of details for the purpose of this, just jotting down a few notes to kind of jog your memory about that experience. So you can go ahead and do that now. And welcome to those who just joined. If you just joined in, we're just diving into an experience of being most powerful or most capable. And so if you have a previous experience of that, go ahead and start to jot down a few notes around that. And what we're looking for in here, I'm going to actually walk you through a guided practice with this shortly, but what we're looking for in here is not so much the event itself, but the outcome of having completed that. So where you were at once you overcame that hurdle or challenge or achieved that skill. And if as you're doing this, other ones are popping into your mind, you can make just a little side note so that you can remember for later if you want to go back and do more of this. But for the purpose of this, let's try and stick with one. All right, so finishing up the thought that you're on right now, just know you can come back to this later, but we're going to use this and go into an experience. So I invite you to either close your eyes or do a soft downward gaze, whatever is most comfortable for you today. Taking in a couple of nice deep breaths, feeling your sit bones on whatever you're sitting on. If you have a backrest, feeling your backrest against your back and your feet on whatever it is that they're planted against. And as you breathe in your next exhale, breathing down into your hips and pelvis, your belly, down into your legs and out your feet, just anchoring you and grounding you a little bit more into the earth. Setting aside any swirl in your mind that might be going on, or tasks or to-dos from earlier or later, and just coming to being fully present in this moment. Being with yourself, being with me, being with our group here. Giving yourself that gift of presence. And now I'd like to invite you to call forward that moment in time or memory of feeling very powerful, feeling very competent and capable. That recognition of, I did that. I got through that. I showed up. I learned that. Whatever that might be for you, really calling that into your being. And so if you're looking through your own eyes, you might see what's happening around you in this experience. But what we really want to connect to is the internal experience. What's happening inside as you revisit that moment of sense of accomplishment, sense of capacity, knowing your own strengths, your own abilities. And with your curious observer, notice how you notice it. And if you need to turn up the volume a little bit on it, you can do that first. Like really Fully going back there and experiencing that moment, turning up the volume, and then noticing how it shows up. Is it in sensations? Do you feel it in your posture? Maybe you're a little bit straighter, or maybe your muscles feel strong, there's strength in them. Maybe there's a sense of energy expansiveness. And maybe there's other sensations. So, being curious, what is it that you notice? How do you experience this? And see if you can notice the quality of the thoughts or emotions that go with it. And if you're not sure, you can imagine what they would be. What are the thoughts? What's the internal conversation that's happening in this moment? What's the emotions that go with it, the state that you're in? And in this moment, what do you believe to be true about yourself? What's possible for you when you're in this state? And once again, I just invite you to be wherever you're at. So if this is coming easily, that's beautiful. And if this is a stretch, just imagine, what would that be like? And now imagine yourself bringing this powerful, capable, confident version of you into the here and now, into today, this present moment. And just notice what happens as you do that. Is it easy to do? Are there thoughts that maybe get in the way? Again, we're not trying to change anything, we're simply observing and noticing. And now imagining from this state of being more powerful, being more capable, what would happen if you walked through the rest of your day from this place? Imagine how that would play out. What would be different? How would you be showing up? What might you be saying to yourself or the people around you from this place of empowerment? And then when you're ready, just taking a moment to send a little gratitude or loving kindness to yourself for engaging in this practice, fully accepting and honoring whatever it was, wherever you're at, is just right for you in this moment. Taking in that breath of loving kindness and gratitude, and then slowly opening your eyes, coming back into the room. And I invite you to share in the chat, what did you notice about that experience? What stood out for you? And what I would love to hear is, what sensations or qualities do you experience when you connect to or imagine you're connecting with your most powerful, capable self? And so, anyone who wants to share in the chat, I'd love to hear from you. This way we can all learn from one another, right? And that's the beauty of doing this in a group, is that someone will say something or share something, and it kind of can sometimes trigger our own insights and awarenesses and take us further or catapult us forward. So I'm seeing that it was very empowering. There was a lot of sensation in the heart region, freedom, more confidence. Yeah, and so empowered, joy. Oh, I love that. Yeah, and so you can start to see some of the qualities. Delight. It is delightful to be empowered, isn't it? Right? Like it's just an easier place from which to operate. And so we can start to see some of these qualities, vibrance, beautiful, that go with this state, right? And so the invitation here is to start to think about lighter, absolutely. When we're in a place of empowerment, things just aren't as heavy, right? We don't feel as heavy. And so I invite you to consider, there's a couple of ways to do this. One would be to consider how can I bring more of this empowered version of myself into my everyday life, right? So, how can I start to use this to my benefit? And there's a lot of different ways in which we can do that, right? And so it might be just practicing reaching for it. It might be starting your day with an exercise or an activity, even just for a couple of minutes, 2 to 5 minutes of accessing, that powerful self that sets this tone for the day. It might be as you're going through your days and you're maybe encountering something that's a little bit more challenging, looking at how can I invite in my empowered self to be present in this moment with me? And then from that place, how might I react or respond to this differently than perhaps what I'm doing or what I have been doing? That's another example. So spending just a moment here thinking about, if you were to decide that you wanted to use this ongoing, how could you do that? It might be, some of these beautiful qualities that have been listed in the chat. It might be calling that up. How can I bring in that quality of empowerment and shine that through me, or that quality of vibrance or delight? Hmm. Oh, and I like this too, more relaxed and not putting energy into self-doubt, you know? Where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so what are we putting our energy into? Hmm. So I'll just give you a minute to think about that. I know I've been talking all the way through, so I'm going to pause here for a moment just to think about, how can I bring this in? What would be conducive to helping me feel more connected to this empowered version of myself? And how can I use this to support me as I'm moving forward? All right. And so, with all of these practices that we're going to be doing today, there is also the opportunity to be in the curious observer and to notice what happens within you as you start to engage in them, right? So, as I said earlier, some of this might be really easy for some people. Some of this might be a little bit more of a stretch. And one thing that we know from the field of positive psychology and transformational change, that the number one thing that gets in the way of growing and changing is a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is that notion of thinking that everything is pretty much fixed or unchangeable, right? Like our level of intelligence, our personality, our characteristics, the way that we show up in the world, we in a fixed mindset, we don't believe that those can change or that they can only change very little. Whereas in actuality, through the research, we know that that's actually not true. Even something like our intelligence is not fixed. We can change that, we can grow that, we can improve that. And same with everything that we're working on here, right? Like these are all skills that through practice and through willingness to show up and willingness to cut ourselves some slack, right? So just because we might not get something right off the bat in the way that we want to, doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to try, right? It's that fixed notion of, of it is what it is, or this is too hard for me, so then I shouldn't even bother. Those are the kinds of things that get in the way of getting the most out of building the skills that will really help you grow and transform and help you move forward. And so just noticing, using this opportunity of our time together today to notice where there may be some fixed mindset showing up, or to notice where you're really great at stepping into a growth mindset, where you can look at this like, I'm just going to be light with these practices. I'm just going to try this out and see where I'm at. I'm just going to push my growth edge a little bit more. I recognize that I'm growing and learning and changing all the time, and that we get better at things by doing them, right? And so just being aware of where you're at and inviting your system into that growth orientation or into that growth mindset just a little bit more. All right. So I think that's all I wanted to share about that. Oh, one final question just to contemplate very briefly. What would be different in your life if this was the place from which you operated? So, from that place of empowerment, from the place of capacity, from the place of strength, what would be different? Taking a moment to reflect on that and write that down. Beautiful. All right, so we're going to move on to another exercise that's going to be around connecting to our longing, our deepest desire for ourselves. And so, again, this is going to be a guided practice, but just a couple of points before we get into this. It's not an intellectual exercise. So, it's not something that we're going to generate from our thinking. We're going to drop down, or the invitation is going to be to drop down into your heart, drop down into your body, into your deeper wisdom or deeper knowing, and see what arises as we do this. Okay. So we're going to treat it like an experiment and just be really curious and playful with this as we go along. And you might have some ideas in your mind already around, thinking that we know what our deepest longings are, right? And so we're just going to gently set those aside and see what comes as we do this exercise. And to know that, health and well-being, of course, is a longing probably for everybody on this call. And I would say for people in general, right? That we have a longing for that deep level of wellness, that well-being, that thriving in our lives. And this is an invitation to go even deeper than that, or there may be aspects of that that surface specifically as we go through this exercise. So, again, there's no right or wrong. We're just bringing curiosity and an openness to experimenting and playing and seeing what comes up. So, I'd like to invite you once again to close your eyes or do a soft downward gaze, whatever's most comfortable for you in this moment. Again, taking in a couple of nice deep breaths. Connecting once again into that most powerful, capable version of yourself that we were working with earlier, to whatever degree is available for you right now, using your intention and your imagination to bring it alive within you, to feel all of these beautiful qualities of lightness and vibrance and joy and empowerment and delight. And then from this place, I invite you to bring your focus of attention and awareness into your heart. Noticing your heart and imagining your breath as though it's coming in and out through your heart center. The air is breathing in and out of your heart directly. As you continue to focus on and invite in those powerful, empowered qualities, connecting to your heart. And if you would like, you can also bring in a feeling of gratitude or loving kindness, self compassion as you're connecting and imagining the breath coming in and out through your heart space. And as you continue to breathe with the focus on your heart, calling up your deepest wisdom, your most wise self, the part of you that's timeless, that carries that deeper intelligence, or it could be higher consciousness, however you look at it, really inviting that part forward. And then as you're connecting to that part and you're breathing in and out of your heart, asking that part of you, what is it that I most deeply desire? Knowing that there's no right or wrong answer. And asking this question from a place of if I could not fail, and if I didn't have to know the how of making that happen, what is it that I most deeply want, that I'm most deeply longing for? And allowing that answer to arise within you. And if nothing is coming, that's okay. This is a practice. And as you practice reaching for it, know that more will come. And if things are coming that don't make sense, that happens too. Trust that it will over time. And knowing that you're showing up in a powerful way, just even by through the intention of reaching your deeper wisdom, through connecting with your heart, and just seeing with openness and curiosity what is there for you. What is that deepest desire? What is that deepest longing? And then when you're ready, you can send yourself again a little bit of loving kindness and gratitude for taking the time to do this experience. Coming back into the room, opening your eyes if they're closed, and taking a moment to just make a note of what arose, if anything specific arose for you, or what you noticed as you did that experience. And if anyone wants to share in the chat, I would love to hear from you. And sometimes people are surprised by what arises. Like, for example, it's not uncommon, even people who are focused primarily on their health and well being, when they drop down into that deeper place, things sometimes like wanting better connections, wanting deeper relationships or more love in their life, that's not an uncommon one. Sometimes it's that longing to be able to contribute in a powerful way, into the world. Yeah, feeling more connection while also being okay on my own, for a calm life, for peace and ease, connection with people that you love. Beautiful. Yeah, a lot of calm, a lot of connection. when we drop down into that. And so, knowing that, I'm curious, when you dropped into that experience, did you notice that there's a quality of energy about that? Yeah, I'm seeing some heads nodding. That oftentimes when we drop down, when we actually really connect with what it is that our heart is most deeply desiring or what it is that we're most truly longing for, there is often a quality of vitality that goes with it. There's a quality of energy that goes with it. There's often a feeling of motivation that goes with it. There can sometimes be excitement. It's like it opens up something within us, an access to an energy and momentum that we can use then to help ourselves propel ourselves forward, so to help us not only move toward the fulfillment of that deepest desire or longing, but that energy can also be used to help us really move forward in the area of health and well-being if, that desire is outside of that area. Because there is, yeah, there is a momentum that goes with it. There is an empowerment that goes with it. I think of when we talk about this, like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And the self-actualization need, and how we all have the propensity within us. We all have that impulse to self actualize, to grow, and to move forward. And when we connect to our deepest longings, that actually taps us into that impulse, which can then be used as momentum. It can be used as a catapult that helps us with the next piece, which is really looking at what's getting in the way or looking at our barriers and our stuck patterns, that the energy and momentum from the longings can actually help us navigate that and help us transcend that. And so, all the practices that we're doing, just to back up for a second, all the practices that we're doing in a specific order today, right? And that it's this order in which we practice them that is actually going to help with that process of ongoing transformation. So, whether you choose to continue on with a group with me after this, or whether you're doing this on your own, just know that there's power and potential in kind of going through these steps in the order in which we're doing them, right? And so I love, yeah, thank you for sharing the other longings. So to follow my longings without fear or limitation, right? So really being able to release the things that are getting in the way of that, to feel more empowered. That's along those lines as well. Beautiful. All right. And so I'm just checking to see if there was anything else I wanted to say about that. No, I think that's good. So let's move on to the next piece. So noticing where we get stuck or stopped. Now, this might be in relation to your deepest desire or longing, or it might be in relation to your health and well-being. And so there's a couple of questions here that will help to kind of prompt you to think about that. So there's a few different ways we can look at that. It might be a pattern that you're seeing that's playing out. It might be something that happens over and over again where you're feeling stuck or stopped. You start to make progress or momentum, and then something kind of gets in the way and hijacks that. It might be feedback that you repeatedly get from people in your life, that is bringing to conscious awareness, oh, this is an area where I seem to be a little stuck or maybe in a little bit of a fixed mindset. And so taking a moment to just reflect on that, thinking about, what are the repeating patterns? Where are you getting stuck or stopped in moving forward in your health and well-being? Just taking a moment to write that down. And then if anyone wants to share in the chat, please feel free. And so once you've noticed kind of where it is that you're finding the patterns repeating over and over, where you're getting stuck or stopped, I invite you to kind of tune into that and see if you can start to access what's underneath that. So it might be the pattern playing out of prioritizing everyone and everything above myself, for example. That's a pretty common one, right? Or prioritizing tasks and to-dos over self-care. That often happens as well. Like with those examples, if we tune in, we drop down to, okay, what's underneath that? What's driving that? Let's just get curious and see what arises. See if you can start to tap into that. Yeah, lack of self-confidence and doubt getting in the way, right? So that lack of being in the resourced or empowered self. Yeah, challenging to keep the momentum going. Right. And so again, yeah, get involved in doing what I love and don't balance it well, getting overwhelmed and shutting down. These are all great examples. And what I love about sharing these is that oftentimes we can see ourselves in other people's examples too, right? And so we start to see like this is pretty common in this realm of the work, the type of work that we're doing, that there are certain common patterns that a lot of us show up with. There might be slight variations in the details, but we're not alone in that. We're not alone in those struggles. Yeah, and so doing something really fun or different, which causes some symptoms afterwards, uncomfortable with change, getting stuck in the how or the timeline. Yeah, absolutely. And so we don't change in our comfort zone. And the comfort zone isn't necessarily comfortable, it's what's familiar to us. And so change and growth requires us to learn how to tolerate discomfort a little bit more. And again, like we were talking about earlier, a lot of these things or everything that we're talking about today are skills that we build through practice and repetition. And being comfortable with discomfort is one of them, right? So we learn to challenge that growth edge a little bit. We learn to be able to sit a little bit longer in discomfort before we change up what we're doing or try and make it go away, right? Which is a common thing. We learn to sit in that just a little bit more. And as we do that, we grow our capacity, right? And the growth mindset can really be helpful with that because it's often in a fixed mindset where that's most uncomfortable is because we feel like we're not good enough or we feel shame or we feel guilt. But if we're in a place of I'm growing and I'm learning, and I'm challenging my growth edge, and discomfort is a part of this, that it's actually a good thing. It's how I move forward. It's a whole different ballgame then to be able to sit with it just a little bit more. But I'm getting sidetracked here. I digress. So, coming back to this notion of like what's underneath it, when we get curious about what drives those repeating patterns or those behaviors, one way of looking at it is through our self concept. So, our self concept is our beliefs about self, others, and the world. And so, Dr. Claire Zammit, who is the founder of the Feminine Power Program and Women's Centered Coaching, she's identified three most common self concepts that tend to get in the way for the vast majority of people. And so, the top three of them are I'm not good enough, I'm alone, and I'm invisible. And so, in the story of I'm not good enough, what often plays out is I am not measuring up. Other people are so much more capable and competent compared to me. So then why even bother? Right? Like we don't show up, we don't put in the effort because we don't think that we have what it takes to succeed. So that's an example of I'm not good enough. And of course, there's other variations. That's just a common one for I'm not good enough, for I'm alone. We have a belief that nobody gets us, nobody understands us. We are not supported by people, maybe by the universe or the divine. We are in this all alone. And so what that leads to is hyper independence, right? That feeling and often a lot of anxiety because there's no point in reaching out to other people or to try and access help even if we need it because we don't believe that they would show up for us, right? And so again, this is
I'm
a
trying
pattern.
to actually turn it down.
I think someone's off mute. If you can put yourself on mute, that would be awesome. So this is a pattern that can
Right.
sometimes show up, and we start to see, okay, so if I believe that I'm all alone and no one's going to show up for me, I'm not even going to bother
I
trying
know, but
to get
normally,
people to show up, right? And so this is where we start to look at um, this is where we want to start to look at this, because if we can start to bring this to conscious awareness, if we can start to recognize what some of those underlying contributing patterns are and we bring them to conscious awareness, that's what enables us to start to shift and transcend them. And so then the third one is I am invisible. So I am invisible is like not feeling like we're seen, right? Or not feeling like we matter to anybody else. And so we're kind of in the background. The focus is all about other people and what their needs are and what they're doing. And we kind of take a back seat to that, right? And so when we're in this place of invisibility, what often happens is we have this perception of, we don't matter, other people matter more. And so then we don't presence ourselves. We don't presence our needs. We don't show up in ways that invite people into understanding our experience. And so this contributes, to that pattern. So there's a question in here. Can number two, so I'm alone, also be being so dependent on someone that you can't be independent? So that would be like a slightly different variation of that. And where I see that more often is in the I'm not good enough. Right? So when we're in a place of I'm not good enough, we lack that self-reliance. We lack that belief or trust in ourselves and our own capacity, which can lead to being overly dependent, on other people. And regardless of what label we give it, it's good to be aware of that, right? And so it's like, okay, so here's the underlying pattern, being so dependent on someone else. So if we drop down one layer below that, it's like, what's the belief about self that causes us to be so high, so overly dependent, right? And it often is like a lack of belief in our capacity or a lack of trust in ourselves, right? That can kind of contribute to that. So again, the invitation here is to start to really look at this, like to start to be that curious observer. And we're not going into judgment here. There is no we want to try and stay out of that fixed mindset or shame-based meaning making that can sometimes come up when we start to look at our patterns and our barriers, especially when we start to look at how we might be showing up in ways that contribute to them. We really want to be in this place of loving kindness and in a growth mindset and know that as we start to bring this to conscious awareness, then we can start to transform it. And even just by becoming more aware of, okay, here's the pattern, what's underneath this, what is the belief system about myself, others in the world that's operating underneath that could potentially be driving that. We start to bring that up. That's what enables us to change it. That's what enables us to transform it. And that's what helps it to start to lose its power. So, for example, like for myself, and just before I go into this example, actually, if you see yourself in all three of them, how many people can relate to that? Just know that that's common, right? Absolutely. I've seen myself in all of them as well. And if that comes up, pick the one that you feel has the most charge or the most potency for you, right? That, we don't have to change everything all at once. We want to work with the one that has the most traction. And so for myself, for example, I've seen in the past a lot of, well, all three, but the one that probably played out the most was this notion of being alone, right? That I had to do everything that myself, that I couldn't rely on people, I'd feel let down. Even when I did reach out to people, either they wouldn't show up or they would show up in ways that weren't overly helpful. And so it would just reinforce the notion, what's the point? I got to do it myself. And what that led to, yeah, I'm seeing some agreement with that in here for sure. And what that led to is this like hyper independence or hyper reliance on myself in ways that would lead to even more burnout, right? Because of how I was showing up. And when I could really step into that place of curious observer and noticing, okay, so here's the pattern, here's the belief, how am I contributing to that? I could see that, the ways in which I was asking for, well, first of all, in a lot of cases, I wasn't asking for help in ways or at all, never mind in ways that people could really show up for me. And so there were lots of opportunities where I do believe people might have been, on board had they known that, help was needed or if I had reached out to them, but I didn't reach out to them, or I would wait until I was like so overwhelmed and shut down and so desperate for help that I would come across in ways that, people would retract rather than being, wanting to help. It's like, whoa, right? And so, yeah, some people can relate to that. And so it's an opportunity to start to see, okay, so from this mindset or from this perspective, how am I showing up in ways that are contributing to that? And once we can start to see and understand that, then we can start to look at what's one small action step, what's one thing that I could do differently in how I'm showing up or in how I respond, if it's like more of a response to other people's, how other people are showing up. What's one thing that I could do differently that's going to start to shift that pattern, that's going to start to change things, right? And so, in the I'm not good enough, just as an example, in the I'm not good enough, having that mindset of we are constantly learning and growing, and that I have value to offer with where I'm at, even though I have more to learn and grow and do. Right. And so if I were to step into more of that mindset, what might I maybe put myself out there to do that right now I'm kind of backing off because I feel inadequate, right? Or it could be when I'm noticing that I'm not good enough showing up, can I step in with a little bit of self-compassion and loving kindness? Oh, here's this pattern again. I'm feeling this way. Can I show myself a little kindness? And what's one action that I can take that is in alignment with me showing up for myself? Because that will start to negate or break up the pattern a little bit too. With I'm alone, it could be asking people for help for small things, I would say, that are kind of neither here nor there, so that the stakes are really low, but learning to ask for help in ways that could generate support for you. And with I'm invisible, it could be starting to presence yourself a little bit more. So practicing saying where you're at, asking for your needs to be met. When you're in conversation with other people, not making it all about them, right? Like actually showing up and contributing a little bit yourself. And know that as you do these things, even these little small action steps, it might be really uncomfortable at first. It might feel different. It might feel like, ooh, I don't know how other people are going to react to me or respond to me when I'm doing this. That's the growth edge, right? Because we don't change in our comfort zone. And so we're going to have to learn to tolerate just a little bit of that discomfort in order to shift the patterns. And what happens as we do this is then we start to get feedback from the external world that, oh, it's okay for me to share my needs, or it's okay for me, to ask for help and be open to receiving that, or it's okay for me to do something imperfectly, and like the sun still comes up tomorrow if I blow something and it's not ideal, right? Like we start to learn these things. And even if other people are not responding in the ways that we would like, it doesn't mean that we quit, right? It just might mean that, okay, maybe I have some skills to learn about how to generate support for myself. Or maybe I'm choosing the wrong people, and that's part of what's contributing to this pattern, right? I'm not actually asking people who would show up for me. So, does that make sense? Show of hands. We're getting it. Awesome. Great. Yeah. And so the invitation here again is for this piece of the work is to start to be the curious detective of your own experience, right? So start to really be curious about what are the patterns? How are they showing up? How am I showing up inside them? And even if you have a good idea already of what that looks like, I invite you to bring curiosity to it because I guarantee you there's probably more to it than what we're already consciously aware of, right? And so the invitation is to start to bring it more to conscious awareness. And with a lot of loving kindness and self compassion, look at, okay, what's one small action that I can take that's going to kind of challenge that underlying self concept a little bit, that's going to help me to start to show up in new ways, you know, and see what happens with that. Yeah, beautiful. All right. So we are at 10 minutes to the hour. So I'm going to invite a little bit more sharing here. So let's share what is our biggest takeaway from today. So if you want to put that in the chat, your biggest takeaway or any aha moments that you've had in what we've discussed, I'd love to hear from you. And then everyone can benefit from hearing that. And Janine, did you want to share out loud? You're more than welcome to do that as well.
Yes, I loved it when you said about the fixed mindset, that it's the number one thing that gets in the way. And like that was just a big aha moment for me. And
Mm,
then in the growth mindset, and really this isn't, none of this is fixed, and it's just about learning skills. I think when you told me that the first time in coaching about like skills, and I was like, oh, that was like a big aha for me, that like I can
mhm.
change and grow.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah, you can change and grow. None of this stuff is fixed, right? And yet, we knew this as children. Like, how many times did we have to fall down when we were learning to walk or put our pants on backwards or whatever those things were, right? We didn't beat ourselves up about that. We didn't go, oh, I didn't get it, so I'm going to just stop. Like, we innately knew that in order to build skills, in order to grow, we had to keep repeating things and that we learn through failure, we learn through mistakes. And yet, as adults, we do not give ourselves that leeway, right? And so that's where often the fixed mindsets start to come in. And so really looking at, yeah, these are all skills that we can develop and we can grow and learn and challenge. And yeah, there might be hiccups along the way, but that's like part of it, right? And so if you go and you presence yourself and people don't receive it and it bombs, then it's like, okay, what can I do differently next time, right? What can I learn from this experience? It doesn't mean that we stop doing it. It's just more information to help us move forward. So I love that. Beautiful. Yeah, enjoying the experience of going to the empowered memory and using it in our everyday. So there's value in that, right? And we can start to see the potential of, wow, if I really showed up from this place, what would that be like? How would my life be different? Beautiful. Linda, go ahead. Can you unmute? Yeah, there you go.
Yes. Hi. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so this is what was really helpful is talking about, like, I'm just realizing my pattern of not being good enough. Um s- uh yeah, just feeling all those things like
Mm,
helpless. Although I'm starting to change a lot, and I've been really looking at my patterns. A lot of my patterns have been really showing up for me, and it's giving me more symptoms.
hmm
Um, but I'm really seeing stuff that I had never seen, and to just see that part of me that doesn't, that it's not all who I am anymore. I really get that, but it is a part that is still, I'm still working through, and that's, not feeling sometimes really like I have to be so independent because I need people to help me, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it sounds like
And
you've got a lot of clarity. As you're working with this, you're getting more and more clarity and insight into the patterns and how that's showing up. And so, what's your
very
biggest
much so.
takeaway or aha from our time together today?
Yeah. So I would say that I think just getting even more clarity and as to moving forward, because I think I was
Mhm.
getting very stuck in it all. I was
Mm,
getting really, yeah, I was seeing my patterns and I was seeing a lot of emotion come up, but I was
mhm.
kind of getting stuck in that. So this has
Yeah,
really helped me a lot
good.
to like, maybe I'm doing that a little too much or something. I
Right.
don't know. It's like I'm not sure what the balance is there.
Yeah, so what's often missing, what's often, causes us to get stuck in those when we're looking at that is because we're not connected to our inner empowerment and our resources, right? So the invitation for you would be to really practice calling up that powerful, capable version of yourself. And it's actually from that place that we want to look at these patterns. Because if we're looking at them outside of connection with that, that's where we can get really stuck in them. And that makes it difficult to change. What enables us to change them is when we bring our empowered self into connection so that we can clearly see the patterns, but we're not getting taken over by all of that, right? And that's what actually puts us in a position to be the curious observer, to be in that growth mindset, to start to look at how we can change and transform that. And so I'm glad this came up because this is a common piece that comes up for people as they're working with this is getting stuck because they're not connected to their inner resources, because they're not connected to the growth mindset. So thank you, Linda, for sharing that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Glenda.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I loved all of it, Candy. I'm always very inspired by whatever you have to share, but just that growth involves discomfort and not to fear the discomfort, but embrace it as part of change and moving forward. So
Mm.
that was a good reminder for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we don't change in our comfort zone.
Yep.
And our comfort zone is what's familiar. It's not even that it's comfortable, right? But
So
because
true.
it's familiar, we're like, "Oh, I just want to stay." And so yeah, learning to tolerate that and that is a skill that we build and we need to build is can I be okay in discomfort? And that's where, practices like self-compassion can be really helpful. It's like, can I have compassion for myself that this is uncomfortable for a moment or two before trying to make the discomfort go away? Right?
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
beautiful. So I'm seeing some things in the chat here too that are great. So learning that moving through a pattern of not good enough um, is one. Oh, I learned that moving through the pattern of not good enough is one small action and really practicing self-compassion. Yeah, absolutely. And so, when we're working with patterns, we do want to look at, baby step actions. You're like, what's the one small next step, the most potent, powerful, really small, easily doable next step that we can start to play with and experiment with that's going to help to start to break up that pattern a little bit, right? And so it's not like trying to change everything all at once. It's looking at, again, just the small action that is doable that's going to help us, that's going to move us forward, right? And in the classes, do you go through these same exercises each time? Yeah, we keep building on this. So we're doing just a very kind of general overview, light touch, and I'll get into a little bit more detail here in just a moment on the groups. But yeah, it is going through this process, and then there's more steps afterwards, and going a little bit deeper into each of these pieces, absolutely. And then the benefit of doing that in a group is that we can use the group energy and momentum as a catalyst to move us forward in ways that is much more quickly, it happens much more quickly than it does just when we're working on this by ourselves or individually with a coach. And so, another post here, seeing how my fixed mindset contributes to my feeling that there are things about my husband that won't change, rather than continuing to believe that change is possible, and seeing how I own a part of that. Yeah. And so, this is a beautiful opportunity to look at, okay, if he is behaving how he is, how can I like what's mine to do and what's his to do, right? And so, how can I look at how that's impacting me? How can I start to show up differently, even within myself or within my connection to him, that's going to change my experience? And what often helps other people change is by modeling it, right? Is that we be the change that we want to see. We model what it means to show up differently, and that invites other people to do the same, because you can lead a horse to water but you can't make it drink. Someone has to want to actually change and be willing to change in order for that to happen, and often our advising of them has a negative kind of counter effect, right? Like when we point out. And so this is a beautiful opportunity to look at, okay, what's my part to do and how can I be the model, right? And what are the beliefs that are operating within me that are maybe keeping me stuck in a particular dynamic with him? That would be another area to kind of be curious about and to consider exploring for sure. All right, so let me just bring up, I'm going to share here just a little bit of information about the upcoming groups for anyone who is interested in doing that. Okay, hold on. Alrighty. So, oh, it's not going. There we go. So I do have, for those of you who do want to dive more deeply into this work, the next Transcending Inner Barriers group that I will be offering is starting fairly soon here on Tuesday, July the 22nd. So it's going to run on Tuesdays, 9 o'clock Pacific, noon Eastern, 5 o'clock UK. It's for 6 weeks. So the sessions are an hour and a half each week. And it's going to be very much similar to what we did today. So it's interactive and experiential. There's going to be self-reflection questions. There will be, sharing obviously as well. And then building on the pieces that we already started to work on today. So this was, as I said before, just kind of a brief overview and starting to touch into these different areas. And you can find more information on my website. I'll put the link in the chat here too to make it easier to click on, but candywhitterfield.com / group coaching is where you can find more information about the Transcending Inner Barriers group. And there's also going to be, just a heads up, starting in September, I'm going to be offering a follow-up group for those who have already done the Transcending Inner Barriers, which is going to be looking at taking it the next step of developing and mapping out our growth pathway to help us move from where we're at now towards a vision that we create from our deepest longing or what we most desire for ourselves. And so that's a little bit longer. So it'll run from mid-September to mid-January. So 4 months. I believe there's about 9 sessions. It's an hour and a half every second week. So it's not as frequent, but there's going to be sort of more to work with in between. Again, very interactive and experiential, and it'll involve a lot of mini coaching sessions from me during that time. And it's the same link to apply for that. And again, that's for people who have already done. So I've been running the Transcending Inner Barriers group for a while now. And so that's for people who have already done that one. And just to know that that's available if you do decide to do the Transcending Inner Barriers. I will be running both of these groups a few times each year. And so that will be, a possibility for you as well. And whether or not you choose to follow up and go with this work in a group or not, I really invite you to take what we did today and to work with it, right? So from that place of growth mindset, we know from practice and repetition that that's how we grow those skills. But to also keep in mind that we all have blind spots, right? We all have areas within ourselves that we can't see. And so if we are really on this path of growing into our potential or self-actualization, we do need to be working with someone who can help us uncover those blind spots, bringing what's unconscious up to conscious awareness. Now, whether that's in a group or individual sessions or you work with someone else, just know that that's a piece in order to really get to that place of our potential. And there's a lot that we can do ourselves in the meantime, right? And so I invite you to play with this and to experiment with this and see how this can start to even just something as simple as cultivating your powerful self every day, how that can actually start to really transform your life. All right, so I'm just